Well, economist Shamabil Yaqub is with me now. And Shamabil, let's get straight, I suppose, to the headline. What does this mean for mortgage holders?
Well, about 90% of mortgages are fixed, so we're not going to see an immediate impact for most people. But as they start to refinance and remortgage their properties, we're going to see this big increase. So for a lot of people who fixed a couple of years ago, they're going to go from close to 2.5% now to over 5%. For $500,000 mortgage, that means it's probably another $165 a week.
That's significant, isn't it, with the rising cost of living as well?
It comes on top of food and fuel prices on average that are adding about $50 a week to household budgets. So, when you think about the weekly budget, it's taking up, near on $200 plus that you didn't have to account for last year. So it is going to put a lot of pressure and burden on some households. But we wouldn't expect to see a lot of, say, mortgage sales and things because of this, because we are starting from a very low interest rate. And most householders and homeowners would have had their mortgages for a long time. So they shouldn't have a huge mortgage left.
And Shamabil, the simple idea here is that the Reserve Bank is hiking the OCR to try to tame inflation.
It is. So right now we've got different kinds of inflation happening in New Zealand. We've got the cost push kind of inflation. So, the global price of food, the global price of fuel, these are affecting everybody around the world. So the Reserve Bank can't control that. But we're also starting to see increases in things like rents, the cost of construction, and general price of things. So the Reserve Bank is worried that we're going to see these price increases becoming kind of embedded like we saw in the 70s or 80s, and it will become a long-term problem. So essentially, the Reserve Bank is saying, we're going to raise interest rates. It's going to be really hard for you to afford to go out and buy lots of things. And that will mean that we'll be spending less money and retailers won't be able to increase prices so much.
Shamabil, will that work? Because it's not just demand that is fueling inflation at the moment, is it? It's also COVID supply issues.
It's a huge number of complex issues, and I think that's why the Reserve Bank was quite slow to start increasing interest rates. It didn't want to increase interest rates until it was sure that it was becoming a really big problem. The difficulty is inflation is quite high, and it makes it hard for the Reserve Bank to do much. So the Reserve Bank has one tool, and it's like a hammer. And even though you want to be really finessed in the way that you manage the economy, the reality is they don't have access to a whole bunch of different tools to do it. So they are going to take this hammer and go, look, we're going to try and make sure interest rates aren't too low. So mortgage rates are quite low compared to history. They're trying to get back to some kind of normal to make sure that there is less heat, less confidence in the economy. Now, it could go too far. If the Reserve Bank misjudges this and increases interest rates too much, we might see a recession.
Oh, it's a tricky and complex problem, isn't it, Shamabil? Thanks so much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you, Tim.